Hi, welcome to the Recovery Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Abbasi. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor. And today, my episode is dedicated to one of my listeners who reached out to me and talked to me about this idea about how AA is a yes program, and yet she's got a big phobia, and it is a conflict of interest, really, to say yes when this idea of public speaking at a sobriety meeting causes severe anxiety, debilitating anxiety. So I want to talk about that because it's a real thing. It's a real fear. It's a real battle, I think, for folks that enter sobriety. Um, we're supposed to say yes to everything because it's supposed to be strengthening our sobriety. But what if the things we're saying yes to actually cause some legitimate fears? So that's what I'm going to talk about. But first, I want to talk about some of the goings ons for this month. So today's May 31st. That means we just finished up our Reads and Recovery review of Man's Search for Meaning book by Viktor E. Frankl yesterday. And the book received 5 barks on the recovery readometer. So yay, it was a good one. I updated the website, so you can see all of this information on the tab that says reads, and that's at recoverydailypodcast.com. So what's the book for June? I feel like maybe I should have a drum roll added in here. If I didn't have my eye disability, I would go the extra mile and add a drum roll. I really would, because I know how. It's stuff that creative stuff that I love, that I gotta hold myself back. So just imagine a real drum roll, okay? The June book of the month is Drop the Rock: Removing Character Defects, Steps 6 and 7. This is by Bill P., Todd W., Sarah S., and narrated by Derek Hendrickson. So this book is a popular one in AA, and it is a practical guide to letting go of character defects that get in the way of true and joyful recovery. Resentment, fear, self-pity, intolerance, anger. As Bill P. explains, these are the rocks that sink recovery, or at least block further progress. Based on the principles behind steps 6 and 7, Drop the Rock combines personal stories, practical advice, and powerful insights to help listeners move forward in recovery. It's recommended. I really am pretty adamant about, when I've got a sponsee, suggesting that they read the book when you get to 6 and 7. I think it's because the big book doesn't talk at length about 6 and 7, and this book is really great at, for me, visualizing, putting some pictures in my head of what this really means. Because like letting go itself, I told you guys how I used the God box because I didn't know how to let something go. Like I needed to actually physically represent this idea of letting go by being pissed off at something. What do I do with it? I write it on a piece of paper and stick it inside this box and shut the box. So this Drop the Rock book, I feel like does the same sort of thing. And that's helpful for me. So it is available on Audible. And then the Listener challenge. Okay, so May's listener challenge focused on creative expressions. And this month, listeners reached out to me, which was super exciting, to give me their creative expression progress. So we had one listener that painted a picture. She's an artist. So she's cheating. I'm kidding. So it's a picture of a tree. It's online. It's beautiful, brilliant yellows and oranges, and it's just stunning. And I'm gonna bust her right now and say you can follow her at lisagreenfineart.com. And I had another listener send me a beautiful writing creation that was for her daughter's graduation. Thank you to you so much for sharing such a beautiful piece of your experiences with your daughter. It totally swelled my heart. It was so nice to have you trust me and share that with me. And two of our listeners are working on paint by numbers that aren't quite done yet, and that's totally okay. I personally just finished my braided basket that I made from the extra curtain fabric that I'm currently, the extra curtain fabric, and I'm currently making two puppy pillows slash toys out of the rest of the fabric. And they're in the shape of bones and they're freaking adorable. So that's from that same curtain canvas fabric. And that'll be all of the fabric. I was like dying to figure out how to use this fabric. So totally fun and a great way to express my love for my friend who has been here for me through my recovery. She called me every freaking day when I first left my job. And it was just, words can't express how much that meant to me, because I've shared with you guys about this idea of how when we go into recovery, you know, we get this swarm of love and expression from people, and then it dies down and we end up like we're still here in recovery and everybody else has gone on with their lives. And this individual just kept calling me. She didn't go away. And I just talked to her yesterday, I think. So I I yeah, so I made these little cute little puppy pillows. That's what I'm calling them, but they can be toys. Depending on the dogs, they may get destroyed. So we'll see, but they're for her sweet little puppies. So, and I may or may not be thinking about making some special gifts for my kids' kitty cats. I have 3 grand kitties, and I'm thinking if this whole puppy pillow thing works out, the next thing I'm going to do is make something for the kitty cats. So that'll be fun. Okay, so what is June's listener challenge? Oh, wait. First, before I move on, I wanted to remind you that I have a page on my website that has upcycling stuff. It has projects on it. I did not add the listener projects to the website because the only one I received actually with a picture was the writing, and I wasn't quite sure if I had the approval to add that to my website. So anyway, I got lots of feedback. Everybody's working on their projects, and that's really what it was all about. Like, let's invest some of this in a healthy way into creating something and making an expression of renewal and recovery and that kind of thing. So it was successful. It certainly was successful for me. And selfishly, that's why I'm doing these listener challenges. So What is June's listener challenge? It is healthy habits, the healthy habits challenge. So what we're doing this month is adopting a new healthy habit for 30 days. So this could be really extensive and difficult, or it can be super easy. So it can include something like drinking more water, or you could incorporate a daily walk or reduce digital screen time. So I'm going to offer you some quick suggestions for some healthy habits that you can consider just to get your interest flowing in June's listener challenge, healthy habits challenge. So here are some suggestions that you can consider. Mindful eating. So one meal a day, you will do nothing while you eat, and just think about eating. Stretching, do a simple 10-minute morning or evening stretch every day. That I do that already. Not to brag or to boast, but to share. Reduce your sugar intake for 30 days. That one is not for me. No, thank you. But maybe some of you are interested in that one. Read for 30 minutes a day out of a book, out of a paper book. And that's something that I have to do. I get to do through my vestibular exercises. So I can't do 30 minutes. I'm struggling to do 2 pages. So, yeah, reading out of a book each day is something that I'm finding that, total side note, I'm finding that I might actually need to go to speech therapy because there's something really, I don't know that it's all visual, but I don't want to go into it here, but there's something not right. There's a disconnect between my reader, my reader and my thinker and my interpreter and my looker. Like there's something not working together because I can't just read. I have to like my thinker, my interpreter is like going slower than my eyes are going, but then my eyes will get caught up and I don't know. It's not a smooth process. We'll just say that. So back to the topic. Digital detox is another suggestion. So have some tech-free time each day to disconnect from digital devices. I'll leave that up to you how long that would be if you choose to take on that challenge. Drink more water. Again, that's something that I need to do. I'm cheating and adding these little flavor packets that don't have sugar in them to my water, and they're delicious. So one of them is made by the Skittles. It's like the brand Skittles. Again, there's no sugar in it. And another one we have, I can't remember offhand what it is, but it's got like grape and orange and that kind of thing. So grape is my favorite. Okay, sleep hygiene. A suggestion is come up with a consistent sleep schedule and stick to it for 30 days. I know that can be hard, but create like a relaxing bedtime routine, something like that to improve your quality of sleep. Go to bed at 9:30 every night or something. I know some of you out there go to bed at 11. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but yeah. And the last suggestion is, just because I'm vegan, is incorporating one plant-based meal a day. So what is important though is to choose a habit that resonates with you and fit it into your lifestyle. So go starting tomorrow. All right. Next, we are on the topic. Okay, so today I want to talk about learning to balance the yes mentality with your personal well-being in sobriety. particularly if you are a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. So, for those of you who are not a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, or you're not even sober, or you have no interest in being sober, or you're not an alcoholic, it doesn't matter. This topic, I think, can resonate with anyone who has a public speaking fear. Okay. So, AA is often described as a yes program. And that means that the members of AA are encouraged to say yes to service work, social events, sponsorship, sharing in meetings, and even speaking in meetings, and much more. This approach, where if somebody asks us to do something, we are encouraged to say yes, helps us to stay engaged with people in our network, stay connected to the program, and stay active in our recovery. So we're not just going to meetings, we're actually participating in the meetings. We're not just showing up on Zoom, but we're actually engaging with people outside of meetings and having social interactions with them as well. So that's kind of what it means to be in this yes mentality. Even when you want to say no, you say yes. Like, I have had times when somebody asked me to do something and I'm like, yes. And I've actually responded in that way. And they laugh, because that's what I was told I needed to do. I needed to say yes, even though I want to say no. So I would just do it. I would go, yes, and for those of you who aren't looking at the screen, I'm nodding my head no, nodding, shaking. I'm shaking my head no, and saying yes. Side note, I had no idea that shaking and nodding in themselves were descriptive of what your head was doing to say yes or no. Until I started listening to books on Audible, that shaking means no and nodding means yes. I mean, that might be obvious to other people, and I'm just a slow learner, but I had no idea. So here I am. I'm catching up at 49 years old. Okay, moving on. But what happens if we're saying yes to somebody asking us to be of service or something in the program, but it becomes a source of unhealthy stress, especially for those who have like a extreme phobia, like public speaking? How do we protect our sobriety while still being yes members of AA? So let's explore this together. The principle of saying yes in AA for me has been incredibly motivating. I am a rule follower. So if you tell me I'm supposed to say yes, I will. If I happen to say no, which I don't see that happening if you've told me I need to say yes, but if for some reason I say no because I actually have another engagement or there's some reason why I had to say no, I will feel guilty. That's how much I want to follow the rules in the program of AA. Because I said I was willing to do whatever it takes to stay sober. And that means I have to say yes when somebody asks me to be a part of something. So this gentle pressure to say yes, and I want to reiterate that it's gentle pressure. That's what it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to cause us stress. This gentle pressure to say yes, when it pushes us out of our comfort zone, it's scary. And that happened for me in the beginning over and over and over again, because I didn't want to even be around people when I first got sober. So I was immediately having to say yes to these things that a normal person would just show up to. I mean, I was afraid to even go to the grocery store towards the end of my drinking. So this thing where I'm showing up to meetings with a bunch of strangers, I'm supposed to share, and every time I opened my mouth, I would cry, was just scary. It was terrible. It was scary, but I knew that, I was told that that's what I was supposed to do. So that again, gentle pressure, it pushes us to get out of the comfort zones and it encourages personal growth. We don't have time to resist. We don't waste a lot of energy resisting. We just say yes, even if we are shaking our heads no, shaking. Yeah. We say yes to service work, which helps us to give back, to grow our network, because we're present more before and after the meetings or during events, before and after events. It forces us to talk to people. If we're like making coffee before the meeting, we're showing up before the meeting, not just when it starts. So it allows that natural conversation to happen. And honestly, the conversation is not so bad because I'm doing something, I'm making coffee. So it takes a little bit of the pressure off. So let's see, even showing up early, yeah, and making coffee. That's what I just said. So I'm right in line with my script, even though I'm not reading my script. So that part of showing up and making the coffee, like I specifically would go to this meeting on Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. and I was asked to make the coffee. And I was totally uncomfortable showing up to this place. It was in this old schoolhouse and we were in the basement and it was stinky. It smelled like mold. And I found out later it really did have mold and other people got really sick, or one woman got really sick. Um, and I had to show up there and there was actually a code to get in. So I was there before anybody else was there. And then, there would be like a couple people trickle in and it was just very uncomfortable and I was nervous to do it. But I did it anyway because someone asked me to, and I was supposed to say yes. So we say yes to social events, which helps us to build a supportive network outside of meetings. Again, it was uncomfortable at first to even think that I could have fun doing anything without drinking, much less do it with these total strangers, the same ones that would show up when I was trying to make coffee. But I did it anyway because I heard I was supposed to say yes. And lo and behold, I had fun at the social events. I went bowling for the first time without drinking. And I remember I was totally uncomfortable. I knew it was both women and men that I was with. And I have this thing about bowling. Bowling is a terribly uncomfortable sport. And I'm going to tell you why, and you're going to totally agree with me. After you bowl the ball and you turn around and you face everybody, you are just like that on stage and everybody's looking at you and it is so uncomfortable. So bowling was something that I would drink at because I just was so uncomfortable when I had to turn around and walk back towards everybody. I can't, I know I'm not the only one because why? Because I'm not unique. I know that other people have an issue with bowling the ball and then turning around and looking at everybody and having to walk back. It's totally uncomfortable and everybody's clapping and you're like, oh, or if you miss all the pins and you're like, shrugging your shoulders like, oh, wow, I don't know. Anyway, moving on. Okay. We say yes to sponsorship, both as sponsors and sponsees, fostering mutual growth and accountability. And each of these things that I'm listing, I'm trying to like hold back because each of these things that we say yes to that I'm talking about could be its own episode for sure. So there's that. I'm never at a loss for topics for episodes. We say yes to calling people in our network, ensuring that we stay connected and supported. Picking up that heavy phone when habit tells us to isolate, not pick up the phone, deal with things ourselves. I don't need help. And most importantly, we say yes, not most importantly, but importantly, we say yes to sharing in meetings and being speakers, contributing our stories, sharing our experience, strength, and hope with others. But what if that thought of speaking in front of a group causes an unhealthy physical reaction, such as severe anxiety or panic attacks? And this is a legitimate concern for many people. Public speaking can be a seriously debilitating fear. For some, it is more than just nerves. It is, more than a dry mouth and butterflies in your stomach. It is a phobia that triggers intense stress, uh, fight or flight stress, that to that level. So over the years, my fear of public speaking did cause extreme, outwardly noticeable anxiety symptoms. Like my face would shake and my voice would shake, and I would get a rash on my chest. It was embarrassing. It was truly embarrassing. This fear of mine started in college because I don't remember having it when I was in high school. Actually, I was in theater in high school. Um, and so I got to be on the stage and not act like myself. I mean, I was on the stage in front of the entire school, and I was one of the main characters. And I remember feeling healthy anxiety. But when I was on the stage, it was not, they weren't looking at me, they were looking at my character. So I never really felt that public speaking fear. It was different. When I went to college and I took a public speaking class. Yeah, that was college. Yeah. That's when it was over. Any thoughts that I was going to be a public speaker, a world-renowned public speaker, were gone. Because it was terrible. It was terrible. I couldn't control my body. It was totally embarrassing. And coincidentally, this time in my life was when my drinking reached a whole new level. And I think that that's really an interesting correlation, because over the years, I've had to face public speaking in my career. And at one point, I was even assigned as a trainer in a reorg that happened in the company. And I, I was sitting in the audience and the VP was announcing this reorg, and there's my name up there. I used to be like sitting in a cubicle, like auditing other people's work, and it says Rachel, trainer. And I was like, what are you saying? I was like, I think my throat just dropped into my stomach. It was really scary. But if I wanted to keep my job, I had to do what was beside my name. So it said internal trainer. So I thought, okay, that's better than international trainer. But what happened? I had to end up traveling internationally when the international trainers were not available. So that didn't work out. But even so, like when I was just training internally, those same symptoms, I mean, it was, my voice was shaky. I don't even know how to explain it other than that. It was just completely embarrassing. And I just didn't know how to overcome it, but I was determined to. And later, as I, gosh, I mean, fast forward a lot of years, I ended up getting to the company where I just left from. And I was still drinking when I started there, and I had to do some speaking stuff for executives, and same thing. I presented to these executives and my face was shaking and my voice was shaking. I sounded like I was going to cry. It was embarrassing. And I thought, the role that I want at this company, I'm going to have to get over this. It was, again, this conflict of interest, like my desire to become a VP at the company was completely contradicting this fear that I had of public speaking. And so it turned out that my desire to be a VP overrode my fear of public speaking. And I figured out eventually that if I was able to learn all the other things that I learned at that place, I didn't even understand what people were saying. It was like they were speaking a different language when I got there because it was all technical. There were acronyms. I didn't know what was going on when I got there 8 years ago. But I guess it was 9 years ago. But I thought if I was able to learn all of this stuff and get to the point where I was a director, um, and I did that through education, through listening, through asking questions and practice, why should public speaking be any different? And that is when it started changing for me. That's when my fear of public speaking began to change. I started with education. So I started listening to several books, and I wanted to speak at work in front of groups as much as possible. Even though I still had the symptoms, I wanted to keep doing it. And it wasn't until I had made that decision that I'm going to beat this that I kept volunteering to do it. So I finally listened to the book Talk Like Ted. The book Talk Like Ted is by Harmon Gallo, and it changed everything. That is the book that changed everything for me. From that point on, after I listened to that book, I felt a reasonable, healthy anxiety prior to a public speaking engagement, versus anxiety that was visible to others. The anxiety that was shutting me down and was embarrassing. Um, I was able to actually create inflection in my voice. I was able to look at people and we are nodding together. I'm looking at people in the audience and I'm actually nodding with them like we're having a conversation, because that's what it became. It became me having a conversation with each and every person in the room. And I'm so, I should write to that author and say that your book changed my life, because it did. Okay, so I tell you this story because I had an intense drive to overcome my fear of public speaking. I had a purpose because there was something I wanted in return. Um, Unfortunately, I never got to fulfill that goal of being VP because I had to leave my company due to my disability. But I did get to run across the president and a VP in the company after one of my public speaking engagements. And the president acknowledged my growth in public speaking and how successful that last speaking engagement was. And if that is all I was meant to reach by overcoming that fear, then I'll take it. It was great. It was great. And he was smiling. He said, "Do you remember what it was like when you used to present to us?" Meaning the executives. And I was like, yeah, I was petrified. It was terrible. And so yeah, he said that I did very well. So it was awesome. So if that's it, then that's fine. But I have a feeling, because this is how life works for me, I am betting that there's an opportunity ahead of me that will utilize this public speaking skill that I've developed and worked hard at building. So I'm going to continue to, I feel like I practice it using this podcast, but it's different, right? I mean, I'm not looking at anybody at all. Um, it's almost weird that I can sit here and do this without looking at anybody, but I'm picturing all of you while I'm talking. So I guess that's why I'm feeling like it's practice. Anyway, it will come. There will be more, I'm sure of it. So it's important when we bring this back to sobriety and saying yes, it's important to remember, those of us in sobriety, that our sobriety comes first. And it comes first before the yes, the need to say yes. So if saying yes to a request that you be of service, like public speaking, leads to a severe stress that endangers your sobriety, it's okay to say no. The AA program is about finding balance and doing what is best for our recovery. If you're asked to speak and you know it will cause significant, unmanageable stress, communicate that openly. You can say something like, "I'm honored to be asked, but I have a severe phobia of public speaking. Is there another way that I can contribute?" And that's really all you need to say, all you should need to say. Offering to help in other ways turns your no into a yes automatically. So suggest that you can assist with setting up a speaker for the meeting. I'm unable to speak, but I know an amazing alternative we could call, like volunteer to help find another speaker, offer to bring some cookies, be a greeter, or make the coffee. There are so many ways to contribute and be of service without speaking in front of the group. Nobody's going to turn down the cookies. And as much as you think that people are walking away from you after you say, "No, I can't do that. I have a severe phobia of public speaking," they're not thinking of it much past that. if you go home and you're thinking, oh, I wish I could say yes, and you're beating yourself up about it. Nobody else is beating themselves up about anything past you making the decision that's best for you. So if you want to overcome your fear of public speaking, I can only suggest from my experience that gradual exposure might help. Start by sharing in a smaller, more comfortable setting. Pick up the book, Talk Like Ted. And over time, you might be able to build the confidence to speak in larger groups. You might be able to. If you don't, it's okay. Not everybody needs to be a public speaker or wants to be a public speaker. Um, so this approach of doing this gradual exposure should be taken at your own pace and comfort level if you decide to do it. Don't let anybody else discount your real fears. And that includes anything that you're asked to do in sobriety. Um, Remember that what other people think of us is none of our business. And if they don't understand why you're saying no, fuck them, honestly. And I don't curse here very often. So I should put a little notice on the description of this episode warning my sissy not to listen with her kids. Anyway, hi sissy if you're there. We put our own well-being first, and that includes our mental and emotional well-being. If your fear of public speaking is severe, I would consider seeking professional help. There are people that help you with stuff like that. There are therapists for everything, and therapists can provide techniques to manage that real anxiety and gradually desensitize you to the fear. Lean on your AA network. You know how you have these friends in AA that are nothing like any of the friends you've ever had your whole entire life because they understand and they're willing to listen and they nod yes when you say that this is wrong or that is wrong. And then they share their struggles and it's mutual. Like these are the type of people that are going to understand if you have to say no for some reason. If you really have a fear, let them know your struggles and your fears. They can offer support, encouragement, and understanding in those situations as well, not just drinking. But we are in this program for life, We are, it helps us learn how to live and cope and manage fears. So this is just yet another one. You might find others who have faced similar challenges, and you can share strategies for coping. Being a yes member of AA does not mean that you have to say yes to everything at the expense of your mental health. It's necessary to find ways to contribute, but make sure that they align with your strengths and your comfort levels. Remember that the goal is to stay engaged in your recovery, connect to your community, but do it in a way that supports your well-being. If saying yes to public speaking threatens your sobriety, obviously it is not a failure to decline. It is an act of self-care. Your health and recovery are paramount. And the AA community completely understands that. There are countless ways to be of service and stay involved that don't involve triggering these terrible, scary phobias. Each of us has our own journey, and it's okay to set boundaries that protect our sobriety. Saying yes for me is incredibly motivating, but knowing when to say no is equally liberating when it's necessary. And I personally have to say no a lot now. And I'm learning how to do it just like you are. So, thank you for joining me today. I hope this discussion helps you to find balance in your life, whether you're in sobriety or not. And if you have any thoughts or experiences you'd like to share, please feel free to reach out to Rachel at recoverydailypodcast.com. Thanks for listening to this episode. And if you enjoyed it, please subscribe. There's so many people that struggle with public speaking. So forward this to a friend that might need to hear it. Your feedback also, if you have any comments, it helps me to reach more listeners, and it helps me to continue to provide valuable content. So be sure to follow me also on social media for different kinds of recovery updates. And I'm also going to be sharing over the next couple days, I'm going to start sharing my recovery upcycling projects. And I've also, like I said earlier, already added them to the website. So lots to be shared on social media if you want to jump over there and follow me as well. Okay, thanks for listening, and I will talk to you tomorrow.